Has this started? How do I tell if I'm going live? The time counter hasn't started. I don't know if I'm going live. I don't know if anybody's here. Of course, I didn't give anyone any notice. Anyway, hi, it's Marci. It is Thursday, August 13th. It's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know if anybody's here. I don't know if I'm live. I don't know what's going on. But I decided to talk about expressive writing now. I was on the phone. I'm sort of sitting here in my own thoughts, which is always sort of a scary proposition. Oh, David, hi, you're here. So good to see you. It's hard to tell. I don't know what I'm looking at here with the live thing. Something I'm gonna have to get used to. Anyway, I'm stuck on the couch because I don't know if anybody's seen my posts, but I broke my foot. A couple weeks ago, I was in the kitchen cooking up a storm and trying to be proactive and multitask, which is probably a recipe for disaster. And I was doing the dishes and loading the dishwasher at the same time that I was cooking, and I was kind of rushing and being really fast and got a lot of water all over the kitchen floor and pivoted a little too much and twisted my right ankle and fell down like a stone, and I bruised my wrist and my ankle was all swollen. And in the process of doing this, I broke my third metatarsal, which is like, if this was your foot, it's like the bone on the top of your foot. During the winter, last winter, I slipped on the ice or something and I broke the second metatarsal. So I was in this big stormtrooper boot for most of the winter last year. And the same thing happened now. So I'm in the same boot, it's the same foot. Anyway, so I'm trying to minimize my steps. So I'm sort of stuck on the couch. So a cat or any of the four of them might walk by. Anyway, so I was on the phone with my aunt a little while ago. She's my Aunt Marie, my mom's best friend, and she figures kind of strongly throughout my memoir, Permission to Land. You all know about this, Searching for Love, Home, and Belonging. Anyway, so I sent her a copy of the hardcover that I signed for her and a copy of the companion journal, Personal Transformation Through Writing, and we were talking about the power of writing in our lives, and even personal, especially personal writing. And she was telling me a very interesting story about how she and my uncle, her husband, very early on in their marriage, started writing letters to each other when they would have an argument. Or when they had deep feelings that they weren't really sure how they could verbally articulate, and they would write letters to each other and then read them privately and then come back and talk about them. And I thought this was such a powerful way of connecting and building their relationship. And then earlier on in their marriage, they went to a group through their church called Marriage Encounter, which I've heard of before. I think I've even heard her talk about it before. And my guess is that it was sort of a weekend, like retreat kind of thing. And they had to work their way through a booklet of questions, of writing prompts, where they talked about all sorts of things related to conflict resolution and intimacy and connection, and how they were processing familial traditions or expectations, etc., etc. And they would have to write separately and then come back together and swap their books and read what each other wrote. And she said the last question that they had to answer was, why do you want to go on living, or something like that. And it was a really deep question, like getting to the foundation of how you value your life and what you feel your life's purpose is, and how you are connected with the people in your life, family members, spouses, partners, very good friends, etc., etc. How we are connected with our communities. And so it was a very big, very deep question, and they were each given 90 minutes to answer. And so they went to their separate places and they did their writing. And when they came back and they swapped their books, she said that They were both very surprised, I guess, pleasantly surprised that although the language they used was different, obviously they're different people, and the way they expressed it was somewhat different, that they both answered the question or had the same exact reasoning structure as each other, that fundamentally their answers were the same, which I thought was amazing, um, and showed on paper why they were such a great match and why their marriage was so very happy and why they were both fulfilled and were able to weather all of the challenges that life brought them. And there are challenges, no one's life is a flat line where nothing changes and you don't experience anything. Everybody's life is an up and down. And I guess the big testament for a couple is whether they can weather those storms together, whether they can grow together and support one another and go through each day with love and kindness. And so we were continuing the conversation, and then we were talking about the power that writing, sometimes even speaking, but the power. Hi, Lori. Hi, Jackie. So good to see you all here. Yay! People are here. I'm not just talking to myself. What was I saying? I just distracted myself. Oh, talking about the power that writing has. And I've talked about this for a very long time with my therapist, who I've been seeing for more than a decade. And if you can articulate the thing that's bothering you, if you can speak it out loud and give it a name, if you can write it out and explain to yourself how you feel, write out your feelings, like excavate your heart and get it all out there on paper, that not only does it take the toxic power away from that problem, issue, grievance, misunderstanding, pain, trauma, whatever. It takes the power away immediately. It doesn't make the problem go away, but it's not tearing at you the same way that it was when it was stuck in your head. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I know that when I'm left to my own devices in my own head, I kind of liken it to like a hamster on one of those Habitrail wheels, the round um, running device in a hamster cage. Sometimes that's what it feels like, because my thoughts spiral in on one another and they just are cyclical, and I don't get anywhere. It just makes a mess out of things that may or may not have been clear before I started thinking about them. But sometimes it's a little bit of a Habitrail wheel. If you feel this way, write Habitrail in the comments if you understand what I'm talking about. I don't even know how to spell Habitrail, but anyway, so what I've figured out throughout my whole life, and I didn't know that I was figuring this out as it was happening, but by writing about things, we gain understanding, not only of the external events going on around us, of the people who are in our lives who are causing us grief or causing us to feel uncertain or causing trauma, or whatever is going on outside of us. I mean, it could also be joy and glee and love and fabulousness. I mean, that's what I hope is going on in your lives. But the realist in me knows that we all have our own crosses to bear, for lack of a better cliche. And writing about them helps make sense out of them. And then my aunt said, well, what do you do when you don't know where to begin? Like, you hear that journaling is really good for this. You hear that writing about stuff is really good for this. How do you know where to begin? What if you just want to start writing your story or start explaining things to yourself, but you're 50, 60, 70 years old, or 20, 30 years old, and you've never written like this before? Where do you begin? What do you do? Well, the answer there are several answers. You could start with the incident or experience or relationship that is currently causing you to think about writing. I just had a fight with my husband and I want to try to make sense out of it so that I can respond instead of react to it, so that I can discuss it with him coming from a place of love and kindness rather than a place of defensiveness and shame. So I'm going to write about it first to make sense out of it. That's perfectly plausible and something that I do. You may want to write about a specific incident. Somebody passed away and you're writing about the death, or somebody got sick and you're writing about that, or you adopted a new cat. We just adopted 2 this week. Maybe you adopted a new cat and you're writing about that. But that exact question that she had this afternoon on our phone call is the exact reason why I wrote this book, the second book. Personal Transformation Through Writing literally walks you through 100 pages of writing prompts. It starts out with, how would I describe myself in 15 words? Now you think that, oh, it's a really basic, banal sort of question, except that I was surprised when I beta tested this question how many people couldn't come up with 15 words to describe themselves. And just this one exercise made them grow a little bit in their perception of themselves. My favorite way to spend a day is page number 2. Well, I mean, you could have 14 answers or 100 answers to this question based on how you feel that particular day. What do you love about your life right now? Well, I'm in quarantine, sort of. I'm afraid to go out. People aren't wearing their masks, which is super pissing me off. People are basically quarantine fatigue. You know, they're exhausted of staying by themselves. They miss their friends. They miss the normalcy of their lives. They miss going to restaurants. I get this, but people going out and not wearing masks, and it's keeping the coronavirus around, is keeping the numbers up. It's keeping the rest of us from living our lives the way we want to. So what do I love about my life? I certainly don't love that. I don't love that I'm sitting here with a broken foot for the second time this year, or in the last 12 months. It's very annoying. But there are so many things that I do love. I love this community. I love that there are people who are around and supportive and fabulous, who are here when I randomly do these lives. I love that when I ask questions within the Permission to Heal group, that people respond, and that you're all slowly coming out of your shells and talking to each other, which thrills me to no end. Some of my videos on my What's Up Marci YouTube channel are getting watched, and I love that I'm able to, in increasing amounts, articulate what for so long for me was sort of stuck in my head and not clear, and how, as I'm learning to articulate these things, it's actually making a difference in other people's lives. I can't even tell you how thrilling this is for me. But again, I digress. So if you're looking for a place to start, this is a good place to begin. If you're still not sure and you don't want to do the commitment of actually buying the book, which is available on my website and Amazon and all of that, I'm giving a digital free mini version of the book away with every purchase of the memoir. So if you bought the memoir on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever, and you didn't get an email, I wouldn't know that you did that unless you told me. If you email me at or drop a message here, I'll just, and give me your email address, I'll send it to you. Also on my YouTube channel, which is What's Up Marci, and I'll put the link down on the bottom of this video once I post it. If you look up What's Up Marci on YouTube, you'll find my YouTube channel, and I have an expressive writing workshop that I filmed and recorded that is on my YouTube channel for free. So I'll walk you through, I think, about a dozen writing prompts from the book, and some photographs and pieces of art that are sometimes inspirational, that I find very inspirational for writing. And you can stop and start the video. It was really designed for you to stop and start the video. So there's like it goes along with a slide presentation, which is Google Slides, which the link to is below the video on YouTube, so you can have the slides yourself. But I think that this is such an important thing, that we all have these tools. You know, writing is free. You get a pencil and a piece of loose leaf paper, or a pencil and a notebook, or type it into your phone. We all have these little notepad things on our smartphones. I also have an app. Shameless plug here. I have an app on my phone here called, where is it? It's right here, called Day One. And Day One is a journaling app. And, I it gives you a space to write. You can upload photos, you can do it audio, you can type it in as text, and it has so it's an app for a mobile device, but it's also an app that I have here on the system tray of my Mac, of my laptop. And you sign up for on both of them the same way, and they sync up. So, it's a really great way for me to journal, because I can journal wherever I am. I'm standing on a line at the DMV and I feel like writing something, I can, and then I want to finish it later and I can hop back on and see it on my computer, on my desktop. You can do this the same way with the notepad function on your computer and on your smartphone. So the little notes here that I have on my iPhone, I also have on my Mac, so I can see the notes wherever I am. I learned these tricks and these little tools to use these tools because writing is so important to me, and it's a way that I have always expressed how I feel about things. It's the way I've always dealt with things I didn't understand, and traumatic things, and things that made me anxious and upset. And I used to hide in my closet when I was super small, like really tiny. Hi, Leslie. Welcome aboard. My parents fought like cats and dogs, and I was an only child, and I didn't know what to do about that. And it used to scare me. It made me really anxious and feel very unsure, like my whole life was built on a fragile sheet of ice, and their fighting made the ice crack. And so I hid, and I moved stuff around in my closet, and I would hide in my closet with a pillow or a teddy bear or something, because I didn't know what to do. And that's when I was really small, and I kind of didn't know how to write. And then later in elementary school or middle school, I started keeping a diary, one of those little ones you could buy at a Hallmark store or something, that had like a little lock and a key. It was rather strange and dorky. But when I was in high school, I really started in a very organized way to keep a journal, and I kept it hidden like under my bedside table, and every single night I would write before I went to sleep. And I would write about my parents fighting, and my parents sleeping in different rooms, and my mother screaming about things that I didn't understand, and how upset I was. And I'd write about my friendships with my friends at school, or boys that I had crushes on, or teachers that helped me, or basically like I wrote to gather some sort of grip of understanding about what in the hell was going on with my life. And I really, as a 52-year-old now, I really would like to go back in time and kind of just like thank that 14-year-old, 15-year-old version of myself that turned to writing to deal with trauma, to deal with things that I didn't understand, because I could have very easily turned to drinking or drugs, or, gone and smoked pot with people. I was such a dork. I didn't really know anybody was even doing things like that at that age. But there were a whole lot of things that I could have used to numb those feelings, to sort of get over feeling like I was out of control. And I think I passed those kinds of things along to my kids. And I don't know if either of them keep journals, but I know that that kind of thinking has helped them get over trauma. And they faced their fair share with my divorce from their dad, and building two homes that they were going back and forth between. And oh, here Leslie says her outlet was dancing. It was the only way she could express herself. I think that's great. Movement is wonderful. I think in some ways well, it's a tap's a different thing, but I think, Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong, but dancing and using movement as an expressive mechanism, I think I, I don't even know how to articulate what I'm thinking, but the idea that you're moving your body as a way of expressing things, I think kind of gets out the energy or that buildup of frustration. Maybe it's cortisol in your brain. I don't exactly know, but I think that it increases the connection, that mind body connection, and probably releases a lot of the pent up energy and frustration that might have been built up without the dancing as the expression. I don't know if that was understandable at all. It made sense to me, but that might not have made sense to anyone else. Um, this is totally off topic, but I know that I tend to, I have a very very rich, very loud, very voluminous inner dialogue, and a lot of times I feel like I get stuck in my head, and that my head is very disconnected, or my brain and my thoughts are very disconnected from the rest of my body. Um, and I think that dancing, not that I'm a dancer, I'm a bit of a klutz, hence the broken foot, you know. Yay, Leslie says I'm right. I think dancing probably keeps you from feeling disconnected from your body, which may be also why I've always had a weight issue or a body image issue, but that's a whole other video. I don't know. Anyway, I'm kind of going off topic, but I guess that's the nature of live, especially when I'm sort of talking into my computer screen here. Anyway, so writing. What do you guys use writing? The 3 or 4 of you who are here, Lori, Leslie, Jackie, David. Do you guys do this? David says he loves to write. He's loving this already. What do you guys think? You guys use writing too to help you figure out how you feel about things? I don't know. Oh, there's a cat here at my feet. Anyway, so those are the thoughts that I was thinking about earlier after the conversation with my aunt. And I don't want to take too much of your time. It's already been almost 20 minutes of me blabbering on. But stay tuned. I am percolating over a multi-session of a writing course that will sort of expand on my expressive writing workshop on my YouTube channel and go coincide. Thanks, Lori. It makes sense. Sort of coincide with the books. You know, like the only reason that I was able to actually write this 400-page memoir was because I've been keeping journals for 35 years. I have an entire Rubbermaid box filled with all sorts of books, fancy books and non-fancy ledger books, and books of graph paper and books of lined paper, and a whole pile of legal pads when I couldn't afford to buy fancy books, and probably hundreds of megabytes of digital journals that I've kept in Microsoft Word format and in that Day One app. But writing has really been the salvation, and I was able to, when I started writing this last October, I was able to go back and reread all of these journal entries. And you know, a lot of the things that I wrote about I remembered. Obviously I lived them, but I was actually amazed that there were so many things that I had written about that I didn't remember, and a lot of people that seemed to be very important to me 30 some odd years ago who I didn't even remember at all. But thanks, Leslie. I appreciate that. I think you're wonderful too. Thank you for being here. But it was because that I kept all those journals that I was able to not just look back and say, okay, you know, like my parents fought when I was little, and my mom was a narcissist, and she was a hypochondriac, and she was overly sensitive about a zillion things, and she was bipolar. Not that that was a word I learned until much later, but I never knew from 1 hour to the next if my mother was going to be Mary Poppins or Cruella de Vil, and I lived with all this uncertainty and all this angst and all of this stuff. And yes, I could say I remember those things clearly, but I wouldn't have remembered what the 15-year-old Marci thought about various specific incidences without the benefit of the journals that I had. When I went away to school and my mom and I fought, or how I felt when I was away, and how I lived my freedom, how I was when I dated various people, what my relationship with my ex-husband was like, my desire to be a mother, and my views of parenting, which I would really like to make a video about separately, just to talk about motherhood and parenting. But I wouldn't have remembered exactly how I felt about all of those things without the journals. So even if you're not planning on writing a memoir for yourself or leaving it for posterity for your kids, just having, if you have kids, that was a grand assumption, but just writing it for your own edification, like making sense out of the things that happened in your past, so that you have a less traumatic present and you're able to make peace with things in your life in the present, and put a name to it and put it away. Like you've forgiven it, you've forgiven yourself, you've made peace with what happened in the past, you understand the behavior and where it came from, positions yourself better for a happier, more meaningful present, and a happier, focused, more meaningful, more peaceful, accepting sense of belonging and sense of home and sense of love for your future, which is really where I hope we all wind up, where I hope you all wind up, where I would like to wind up, and something that I sincerely hope for my children and all my step grandchildren and my students I have every year. It's the biggest blessing I think that any of us could have in our lives, is to move forward in our lives with intention and love and joy and peace, and get rid of the shame and get rid of the self-doubt and get rid of all of those self-limiting perspectives that we let run rampant in the Habitrails of our brains. Anyway, I'm done. I think I've talked myself in a full circle here. It's almost 25 minutes, and I love you all for sticking with me and being here, and I appreciate you, and I hope that you have a lovely evening. And share this video with anybody who you think this could benefit. And please, if you are so inclined, to share the information about my 2 books, because I really think that they could be of benefit to the people who read them. And that's it. I love you all very much, and I'm glad that you're here. And please drop me a line if there's something I can do for you, or something you want to hear me talk about. Yes, and then we can help others. Exactly. If we make sense of the things in our past so that we're more comfortable and we understand our own behavior, we can then spread that knowledge and that wisdom onto other people, our kids and our communities and our families and our neighbors and the people we know through the organizations and communities we belong to and that we are a part of. I think it's a beautiful thing. There's enough divisiveness and pain in this world. We, I think, need to actively work on ways to bind us all together with love and kindness and hope. And on that beautiful and lovely note, I'm gonna sign off for the day, and I will see you in the Permission to Heal group, and I will see you on Facebook, and I will see you on Instagram, and I will see you on What's Up Marci on YouTube, and anywhere else that we have the fortune of connecting through. So I love you all, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.